this episode, we move into a topic that helps responsible AI become real in day-to-day operations, building the right measures so you can see trouble coming before it turns into an incident. Organizations often discover AI problems only after complaints, bad headlines, or obvious failures, and by then the damage is already done. Key performance indicators, KPIs, and key risk indicators, KRIs, are the basic tools that help leaders understand whether a system is doing what it should and whether it is drifting toward harm. The important beginner idea is that you do not need perfect measurements to be safer. You need early warning signals that are understandable and tied to action. KPIs help you see whether the system is achieving its intended purpose, and KRIs help you see whether risk is rising in ways that threaten people, trust, or compliance. When these are designed well, they become like a dashboard in a car, telling you when something is overheating before the engine fails. The goal here is to learn how to choose measures that matter, define them clearly, and make them useful to real decision makers. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Start with the difference between KPIs and KRIs, because people mix them up all the time. A KPI is a measure that tracks performance toward a goal, such as how helpful a support assistant is or how accurate a classification model is in the setting where it is used. A KRI is a measure that tracks risk, such as rising error rates for a certain group, increased privacy exposure, or increased misuse attempts. A system can have excellent KPIs and still have dangerous KRIs, which is why you need both. Imagine a model that speeds up processing and reduces costs, which looks great as a performance outcome, but it quietly increases unfair denials for a subgroup, which is a risk outcome. Without KRIs, the organization might celebrate the system until harm becomes visible. With KRIs, you can surface risk early and fix it before it becomes an incident. So the core mindset is balance. Measure success and measure danger at the same time. Before you pick any indicator, you need a clear purpose statement, because indicators that are not tied to purpose tend to become vanity metrics. If the purpose is to assist humans, then a good performance measure might involve usefulness, time saved, or reduction in repetitive work without harming quality. If the purpose is to detect fraud, then performance measures should relate to catching true fraud and minimizing false accusations. If the purpose is to route tickets, then measures should reflect correct routing and improved resolution outcomes rather than just speed. Beginners often assume accuracy alone is enough, but accuracy is a summary number that can hide serious problems. The purpose tells you what quality means and what harm would look like, which guides both KPI selection and KRI selection. When purpose is fuzzy, indicators get chosen because they are easy to compute, not because they reduce risk. A good way to design indicators is to think about the system's lifecycle and identify where problems can emerge. Problems can start with data, such as missing values, changing input patterns, or biased representation. Problems can appear in the model, such as drift, instability, or unexpected behavior under new conditions. Problems can appear in the user workflow, such as people overtrusting the output, using it for unintended decisions, or feeding it sensitive information. Problems can appear in the environment, such as policy changes, new threats, or a new user population with different needs. For each of these zones, you want at least one signal that can alert you early. This is how KRIs become predictive rather than reactive. A common mistake is building indicators that only tell you the system failed after it already harmed someone. Early indicators often look boring, like changes in input distributions, rising uncertainty, or rising escalation rates. But those are exactly what help you act before harm spreads. Now let's talk about performance indicators that are useful without being overly technical. One strong KPI idea is outcome alignment, meaning you measure whether the model's outputs lead to the intended good outcome. For example, if the model suggests responses for support agents, the performance measure should relate to customer resolution quality or satisfaction, not just response speed. Another KPI idea is decision support quality, meaning you measure whether humans find the output helpful and whether it reduces cognitive load without causing mistakes. A third is stability of performance across time, because a system that is accurate one month and unreliable the next is not dependable. You can also measure adoption and appropriate usage, but those must be handled carefully because high usage is not always good if the output is harmful. The key is to select KPIs that connect to the real-world purpose, not to internal convenience. When leaders look at KPIs, they should be able to answer the question, is the system improving what it was built to improve? Now shift to risk indicators, because KRIs are the early warning system for responsible AI. One powerful KRI category is error concentration, meaning whether mistakes are clustering in certain groups, locations, or situations. You do not need advanced math to know that uneven error is an ethical and operational risk because it creates uneven harm and potential discrimination. Another KRI category is uncertainty and confidence mismatch, meaning the system acts confident when it should not, or users treat outputs as certain when they are not. A third KRI category is drift, meaning the data or behavior is changing in ways that make the model less reliable over time. Another KRI category is misuse and policy violation signals, such as prompts that include sensitive personal data, attempts to extract private information, or usage patterns that suggest the model is being used for decisions outside its approved purpose. A final category is compliance and privacy exposure, such as increased access to sensitive logs or expanded retention beyond policy. These risk indicators do not need to be perfect, but they must be sensitive to changes that precede incidents. Defining an indicator is as important as choosing it, because ambiguous indicators lead to ambiguous decisions. Each indicator should have a clear definition, a data source, a measurement frequency, and an owner who is responsible for reviewing it. It should also have a threshold or trend expectation, so that people know what counts as normal and what counts as concerning. Beginners sometimes think thresholds must be exact numbers, but a threshold can be a trend rule, like a sudden increase compared to the prior month or a persistent rise over several weeks. The important thing is that the organization agrees on what triggers attention and what action follows. If an indicator moves and nobody knows what to do, it is not a real control. A KRI is most valuable when it is tied to a pre-agreed response, like increasing review, narrowing use, updating data, or pausing deployment. It is also important that indicators are understandable to leaders, because indicators only prevent incidents if decision-makers can interpret them and act. This is where beginners can add a lot of value. You can push for measures that are meaningful in plain language rather than measures that only specialists understand. For example, instead of only showing a complex technical score, you might translate it into something like rate of escalations to human review, rate of user complaints about incorrect output, or proportion of outputs flagged as low confidence. You might also present risk in terms of impact, like how many people were affected by a certain error pattern. The point is not to oversimplify. It is to make risk visible and actionable. If the indicator cannot be explained in a short, clear sentence, it is unlikely to influence leadership decisions under pressure. Another key idea is to design indicators that are hard to game and that do not encourage bad behavior. If you measure success only by speed, people will rush and quality will drop. If you measure success only by reduced escalations, people may stop escalating even when they should. If you measure performance only by adoption, teams may push usage even when the use is inappropriate. Good KPI design balances multiple measures so that improving one does not hide harm in another. Good KRI design includes checks for unintended consequences, such as a rise in complaints when adoption rises, or a rise in privacy-sensitive prompts when usage grows. This is why KPIs and KRIs should be built together, not separately. The system should not be able to look successful while becoming more dangerous. You should also build indicators that reflect the full AI system, not only the model. Many incidents come from the surrounding process, like how the output is presented, how users interpret it, and how teams respond to warnings. Indicators can include training and awareness measures, like whether users understand the system's limits, or operational measures like response time to flagged issues. You can also track governance measures like whether change reviews are happening when data sources change. These may sound less technical, but they are often more predictive of incidents than model-only metrics. A model can be solid, but if users treat it as an authority and paste sensitive data into it, you can still have a major privacy event. So your indicator set should cover model behavior, user behavior, and governance behavior as a whole. A practical way to think about early warning is to focus on leading indicators rather than lagging indicators. A lagging indicator tells you that harm already occurred, like a confirmed discrimination complaint or a confirmed privacy breach. A leading indicator tells you that the system is moving toward harm, like rising disparities in error rates, rising use outside approved scope, or rising frequency of low-confidence outputs. Leading indicators are sometimes less dramatic, which is why they are easy to ignore, but they are where prevention lives. You do not have to eliminate lagging indicators, because they are still important for learning and accountability, but you should not rely on them as your main risk control. When leaders only respond to lagging indicators, the organization becomes reactive and damages trust repeatedly. Strong KRI design makes it possible to intervene early and avoid that cycle. To close, building AI KPIs and KRIs that reveal problems before incidents happen is about choosing signals that align with purpose and expose risk pathways. KPIs should reflect real-world outcomes, usefulness, and stability, not vanity metrics that make the system look good on paper. KRIs should highlight early signs of unfairness, drift, misuse, privacy exposure, and overconfidence, and they should be understandable to leaders who must decide what to do. Each indicator needs a clear definition, a reliable data source, a review cadence, an owner, and a trigger that leads to action. The best indicator set covers the model, the data pipeline, and the human workflow around the model, because incidents usually come from the system as a whole. When you build measures this way, you move from hoping an AI system stays safe to knowing when it is starting to drift, and that is how responsible governance becomes proactive instead of crisis-driven.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.